Hello and welcome to Eternity Tutorials. Today I'll be dealing with the zeros of the polynomial. Now, what are the zeros of the polynomial? Zeros of a polynomial means the solution of a polynomial. Let me just say, for example, if I have x plus 2 as a polynomial, then I know that if I put x as minus 2, then I know that if I put x as minus 2, I get answer to be 0, and hence I say that minus 2 is the zero of a polynomial. Now for the standard form, that is the quadratic polynomial, this is a standard form of a polynomial because the number of zeros depend upon the degree of a polynomial. As you see here, the degree of the polynomial is 2. So the number of zeros possible for this polynomial is 2. The zeros are alpha and beta. Now if I say that these are the zeros of the polynomial, then they are somehow related to the polynomial. How? That if alpha plus beta, that is the sum of the zeros, is equal to minus b upon a. What is minus b? Minus the coefficient of x upon the coefficient of x square. What is the coefficient of x here? B, and the coefficient of x square is a. The coefficient, when I say, is apart from x, for that particular term, whatever the number is, that is the coefficient. Now similarly, we talk about the product of the zeros. That is alpha into beta is equal to the product of the zeros. And what is the product of the zeros? C upon a. If you see, C is the constant. So we say that the constant upon the coefficient of x square. This is the relationship between the zeros and the coefficients of the polynomial. Let me take an example so that the things will be more clear to you. I write down, find the zeros of x square plus 7x plus 10 and verify the relationship between the zeros and the coefficient. Alright. If you know, we can factorize this polynomial by middle term splitting. I write this as 5x plus 2x plus 10. I take x common and I get x plus 5 plus twice of x plus 5. X plus 5 comes out to be common and x plus 2 is left. When I equate it to 0, I get x is equal to minus 5 and x is equal to minus 2. So these are the two zeros of this polynomial. Let me just see the sum. If you see the sum of the zeros, it is minus 5 plus minus 2, which is equal to minus 5 minus 2 is equal to minus 7. And if you see, minus 7 is minus the coefficient of x upon the coefficient of x square. Can you see in the question that the coefficient of x is 7 and the coefficient of x square is 1. So we get that the sum of the zeros is this. Now similarly, I find the product of the zeros. When you find the product, it comes out to be minus 5 into minus 2, which is equal to 10, which is equal to the constant upon the coefficient of x square. And hence this is the relationship between the zeros and the coefficients. Let's take another example. Let us take the equation 2x square plus 3x plus 1. Now we'll find out the solution, the zeros of this polynomial. So this can be written as 2x plus x plus 1. I take 2x common out of the first two and I get x plus 1 plus x plus 1 remains as it is. Now x plus 1 is taken common and we are left with 2x plus 1. If you see from here, I get x equal to 1 and as minus 1 by 2 as the two zeros of the polynomial. Now if I take the sum of zeros, minus 1 plus minus 1 by 2 is equal to minus 1 by 2 is equal to minus 3 by 2. If you see minus 3, it is minus the coefficient of x upon the coefficient of x square. As you see in the question, coefficient of x is 3 and the coefficient of x square is 2. Now we write down the product of the zeros. So the product is minus 1 into minus 1 upon 2, which is 1 by 2. What is this? If you see, 1 is the constant and 2 is the coefficient of x square. Now what if the sum and the product of the zeros of a polynomial are given to you and we have to form a polynomial? Now let us take the example. Question says, find a quadratic polynomial the sum and the product of whose zeros are minus 3 and 2 respectively. Now, before I start with this question, you need to know a formula which says x square minus the sum of zeros into x plus the product of the zeros. Always remember this and you will be able to form the polynomial very easily. The polynomial formed is x square minus the sum given to us is minus 3, so I write down minus 3 into x plus the product given to us is 2. I write this polynomial as px equal to this. When you simplify it, that is, we multiply these signs, we get x square plus 3x plus 2 is the quadratic polynomial, the sum and the product of whose zeros are minus 3 and 2. Similarly, you can form the more quadratic polynomials when the sum and the product of the zeros are given to you. But remember, if the sum and the product of the two polynomials are not given to you and the zeros are given to you, then we find out the sum and the product and then we form the quadratic polynomial. Let me just take an example of that. Okay. Now find a quadratic polynomial whose zeros are 4 and minus 3. Now how do you find the polynomial? Before I find the polynomial, I need to know the sum of the zeros. Please see, the sum of the zeros is 4 plus minus 3, which is equal to 1, and the product of the zeros is 4 into minus 3, which is equal to minus 12. Now, as I told you earlier, that when you have to form the quadratic polynomial, we follow this, that x square minus the sum of zeros into x plus the product of the zeros. So now we form the polynomial as x square minus the sum is 1, so we write down, and the product is minus 12. I write again this polynomial as px. As I simplify it, I get x square minus x minus 12. So that's all for the zeros of the polynomial. If you have any doubts, please leave your doubt in the comment section. If you like the video, please share and subscribe it. Thank you.